Welcome. Good evening. We are here at the Snowmass Village Squirm Night, a 2022 election event brought to you by GrassRoots TV, Aspen Public Radio, the Aspen Daily News, and the Aspen Times, and funded through a grant from the Aspen Thrift Shop. I'm Megan Tackett, editor of the Aspen Daily News, here with Don Rogers, editor of the Aspen Times, and Kaya Williams, a reporter with Aspen Public Radio.
First up tonight, we're talking with two candidates for Snowmass Village Mayor, Bill Madsen and Reed Lewis. They'll be in the hot seat for about 50 minutes. After that, starting at 6:30 p.m., we'll talk with four candidates for the Snowmass Village Town Council.
As for voting, if you're a registered Pitkin County voter, your ballot will go out in the mail on October 17th. It's a Monday. If you're in the military and stationed overseas, you may have already received your ballot in the mail. And thank you for your service, by the way. You can return your ballot in the drop box outside the county's administration building on Main Street in Aspen. That drop box is already open for replacement ballots, which are available for people who will be out of town during the voting season. You'll have until 7 p.m. on Election Day. That's Tuesday, November 8th. Drop off your ballot.
Now, if you're voting by mail, the Pitkin County Clerk strongly advises you to mail in your ballot by October 31st, Halloween, so it reaches them in time to be counted. In-person voting begins Monday, October 24th in the Pitkin County Administration Building's Roaring Fork Room. That'll be open 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on weekdays until November 4th. It's also open Saturday, November 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Election Day, that's Tuesday, November 8th, there will be a trio of local polling centers open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. The polling centers will be located here at Snowmass Village Town Hall, in the Aspen Jewish Community Center on Main Street in Aspen, and in the Basalt Regional Library. For more information on voting locations, you can go to pitkinvotes.com. You can also go there for a link to voter registration.
Tonight, we'll be asking the candidates questions about their experience, platform, and Snowmass know-how. We'll begin with 2-minute opening statements and end with 2-minute closing statements. For most questions, the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer. Don will give a 30-second warning, holding up a yellow card, and a 5-second request for you to stop speaking, holding up the red card. We'll alternate between candidates, so each one of you will get an opportunity to answer first.
And to break things up, we'll have a short spot check questions. I'll be asking these short questions that shouldn't take longer than about 15 seconds to answer. Think of it as a pop quiz. For now, we'll start with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. Candidates, reminder to speak directly into the microphone when you answer.
Bill and Reed, thanks for joining us tonight. We're letting the incumbent make the first opening statement, and the challenger, that's Reed, will get to make the first closing statement. Bill, that means you're up first here.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here tonight. It's really an honor to be in this position, to be running for mayor of Snowmass Village for a second term. For those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Aspen. I've been in Snowmass Village for almost 30 years, and it's been great to be a part of this community. I often tell people that Snowmass is a lot like Aspen was when I was a kid, a much smaller community. And when you go to the grocery store or the post office, you often meet people, and that's where we have our most interesting conversations and debates about the village and the future of the village. But it's really great to be part of this community because when my folks first came here in the 1950s and built a small apartment house, it was really about providing some opportunities for locals. And my mom still runs that little apartment house on 5th and Hopkins in town. And it's really inspired me to provide that opportunity for more people in Snowmass Village. So I'm a big proponent of employee housing. I think employee housing really allows people to live and work in the community. I'm a real proponent of keeping people close to where they work and where they play, and that's what we do here in Snowmass Village. I'm also a big proponent of public transportation. I think we really need to be able to provide people with access to public transportation so they don't need to use a vehicle while they're in our village. We've got an amazing transportation system, and I'm looking forward to expanding on that so that we can continue to provide access to almost anywhere you want to go in the village.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Bill. And Reed, you're up next.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here, and also feel very privileged to live here and to run for mayor. A little bit about me in case you're not familiar with who I am. I've lived here since 1996. I did a little stint over in Aspen, but kind of got back here as soon as I could. I'm from New England, small town in southeastern Connecticut, and the time that I lived in Aspen is actually the largest town I've ever lived in, so I'm very familiar with the small town living, love it. It's great to just know so many of the people that live here and call this place home. One of the, I guess, the biggest things I did growing up was I sang in a chorus, a community chorus, and that was sort of where I learned how to volunteer and to give back, and that's been really important to me, to be able to give back to the community. And I was also able to do that here a couple of years ago, suddenly about a decade ago. I was on the town council from 2006 until 2010. After living in North Stonington, Connecticut, I went to college at Colgate University, and then was president of my class there, and I've stayed involved with that. I generally jump into things and deal with a whole heart, so I'm really excited to give back again and to make our town as great as we can make it. Thank you.
Thanks, Reed.
Timer's behind. Okay, so we're ready for some questions. Are you guys ready for questions?
You bet.
Good. Yeah, that's why we're here, right? So each of these is for both of you to answer. You'll each have 2 minutes to respond. Whoever answers first will get the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal. We'll alternate who answers first, and in between, I'll wind up asking you some spot check questions. Yeah.
I mean, Snomats has dispensaries now, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Reed, you're the first one to answer this, if you will, please. How much development is too much development in Snowmass Village?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, it's been thrown around the phrase just big enough, and we've been talking about that since at least, 2004 when we were debating about the base village. Currently, I think we're in a spot where we need to just sort of settle and see how it kind of plays out. We still have a good amount of the base village to be completed. There are also already approvals for the Snowmass Town Center, and we don't even know what impact that's going to be. It's going to be a real big juggling act with our post office and grocery store, and sort of the hub of the village here. So I'm kind of in the camp of let's sort of see what we've already got on the table before we jump into a lot more projects. That would be my statement on that. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Bill, your thoughts? How much development is too much development in Snowmass Village?
Well, I think if it's going on right in your front yard, development's always a little bit of a challenge. But I first ran for the Snowmass Council in 2014, and my focus at the time was really to get the base village going. That project had stalled out for a long, long time, and we basically had a concrete bunker sitting across the street. So I think the council was really mindful in that development. I've traveled around the country and around the world visiting ski resorts, and I would put our base village against any base village in the country or the world for that matter. I'm really proud of the work that we did to get to that point. It was a challenge. There was a lot of give and take, but I really am proud of the base village. And if you go down there on an afternoon, you see kids running around playing on the rink or on the yard in the summertime, and the parents hanging out. It's really a welcoming place. So I'm happy with the base village. How much is too much? That's I think it's probably debatable, but I think the just big enough concept is it can be applied here. The one thing about Snowmass Village is we are about 95% built out. So there's not going to be a tremendous amount of development that takes place going forward. We do have identified our CPAs, our comprehensive planned areas, which are the mall, the center, the town park, and And those are the places we're really trying to focus development so that it's not a sprawl across the whole village.
Thank you. Reed, do you want to take a 30-second rebuttal?
No need.
Great.
Okay, spot check time. So, a question for Bill. What night is the Snowmass Rodeo?
Wednesday nights.
Very good. And Reed, what is the name of the community space in East Village?
Base Village.
You know, I knew I should have.
The collective.
Thank you.
Thanks to both of you for those A+ answers, round one. Bill, you'll answer first on this next question. How much power should the town council have in regulating short-term rentals?
Well, this has been a hot topic over the last 7 months. We've really kicked it around a lot, and I think there's a lot of communities around the country and certainly around Colorado that have been wrestling with this issue. I have been of the mind since we first started talking about short-term rentals is that we really need to figure out what we have before we start regulating it. So I was a real proponent of the permit system. So we are going to establish a permit system for short-term rentals. I think the biggest thing and the biggest concern that people had was over single-family homes. Snowmass is a resort community. I don't think we need to regulate the condos, the hotels. I think it's really important that we try to maintain our community atmosphere within our neighborhoods. And so but before we start regulating anything, I think it's really important to figure out, who is renting for what amount of time. And once we have the data, then we could start, focusing on if there needs to be regulation. So at this point, I think a permit process is the right way to go.
Awesome. Reed, you're up.
I've also sort of kept, kind of watched that as it's flowed through the last 7 months. And I agree there needs to probably be a permitting process so we're more aware of exactly what's going on along especially the single family homes. I am concerned about the level of micromanagement that seems to be going into the ins and outs of all the fines and how it's all going to look. I don't think it's a horrible problem at this point, the way it exists. I think there could be some better education as far as the rules, and I think one of the big issues is parking, partying, and quite honestly, I don't think that the amount of partying is really that out of control. I think there's probably a couple sites that have been sort of caused most of the issues, and I think that's just one of those things you kind of have to deal with case by case, but I'm a little more on the side of less regulation than incurring sort of the opposite of what we want to have happen. We want people to still visit here, and I believe that by adding too much regulation, we're going to actually lose homes that are in the pool.
Bill, you have the chance for a 30-second rebuttal if you'd like to take it.
Yeah, and I'm not of the mind that we need to start shutting down single-family homes. I think it's a really important part of the offering the Snowmass Village has, because I've spoken to a lot of people, and a lot of people have had great experiences coming to Snowmass Village and staying in a home with, an extended family or another family. So I think that opportunity is really important, but we just got to make sure that it's done in the right way. I've had people say to me, Bill, you just don't know what it's like until you live next to a short-term rental. So I think it's important that we go about it in a very calculated and a smart way.
Got to do my cut. I'm making sure I'm reading this properly. What is the nickname, Reed, for Carriageway?
Snowmelt Road.
Very good.
You can get an extra half point, and we're not keeping score if you can tell us why.
Because of the boiler that keeps it from freezing most of the time. There are a few days that the plow does have to roll down it to keep it when it's snowing really hard.
Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, Bill, how many roundabouts in Snowmass Village?
There are, 2.5.
Good answer.
Would you like to explain the half?
Well, yeah, the mini roundabout is what we call it over near the base village is what I would call a half. And, it does create a little bit of a stir with some people because they just feel like people don't understand it. And generally my response has been, would you rather have a stop sign? I think everybody agrees we don't want any stop lights in Snowmass Village. But I think that not having a stop sign there, that intersection does function better than with a stop sign.
All right, Reed, back to you. We were debating, should we say 3 or 2 is an acceptable answer on that one? So I like 2.5. This one's about staff direction. Once council gives direction to staff on a general matter, how hands-on do you think council members should be with implementation?
I think it depends on the issue. I think some of the issues are quite a bit larger than other ones. I think it's good to have some guardrails and to sort of check in along the way. I was recently at a board meeting where I'm on the board of Aspen Out, and was recently on that board where the communication between the board members and the staff was a little bit less than desirable. And I wouldn't say things went off the rails, but just the communication was not where it needed to be to keep everybody sort of moving in the same direction and on the same page. So I think they've been hired to do a job, and I expect that they are good at their jobs. And I also think it's fair to sort of check in and make sure that things are going the way that the council voted.
Sure, thanks. Bill, same question. How much involvement should council members have once they've given direction to staff as far as implementation goes?
Very little. In a home rule municipality, it's really the job of the council to set the goals and to hire a town manager to do that job and to implement those goals. So, the only person that works for the council is the town manager and also the town attorney. Everybody else works for the town manager. So it's really the council's job to not get involved, but to make sure the direction is set clearly.
Great. Reed, would you like a rebuttal?
Okay, spot check. Bill, how much is the local sales tax that goes directly to the town of Snowmass Village?
If you include the lodging tax, we're at 12.3.
So that's different than what you guys came up with.
Yeah. Well, it's a tricky question, and I don't want to give away the answer to Reed's answer. But the local sales tax, which goes directly to Snowmass Village on sales, is 3.5%.
Okay, another spot check. Reed, how much is the local lodging tax that goes directly to the town?
Being in the retail sector, I'm not exactly sure. I know that the retail sector is 10.4, like Bill mentioned before. I believe it's another 2 point something. It's somewhere between 14 and 15%.
Yeah. So you are pretty close there. It is 2.4% on lodging, and that 10.4% is the total sales tax, which includes state and federal things. 12.8% is the total on lodging.
The more you know.
Yeah. And for this next question, we're going to tweak the format a little bit. These questions are catered towards each of the candidates. Then we'll give each of you the chance for a 30-second rebuttal once you've both given your 2-minute answers. The town's comprehensive plan establishes Snowmass as both a resort and a community. And we've both chatted about this in interviews last week. Bill, you've said that Snowmass Village feels like more of a community than ever. So how do you respond to community members who say that they feel the pendulum is swinging too far toward the resort side of the equation?
Well, I guess I just have to disagree with them. I think, a sense of community is relatively subjective. So, I feel that there are more and more people in this town that are living and working here and spending their lives here than there have been in the past. And I think that's what really creates a community, and that's the sense of belonging that we all want to have in a small town or in this particular village. So yeah, I think community is subjective.
Thank you. Now, Reed, you've mentioned that you've heard from some community members that the town is swinging a bit too far toward the resort side of the equation in terms of community character. Do you think that it's possible to restore the balance between the resort and the community and still ensure the vitality of local businesses?
I do. I think that there is a feeling here that we all chose to live here, even though it's a lot more expensive than a lot of other places. It's kind of one of those places you really have to want to be here. And my favorite event of the year is the Thanksgiving potluck, which just brings the entire community together. And I believe that we can create more opportunities like that to come together as friends and neighbors. On a personal note, and sort of trying to help the town get to more of those, I was instrumental in restarting the Snowmass Wine Festival back in 2002. And then recently, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, started Cider Mass. So I think sort of events like that are local are really fun to kind of get people together, where we can celebrate what we have in common versus some of the differences that we sometimes kind of get into it over the local politics.
All right, Bill, you can offer your rebuttal now if you'd like.
That's fine.
All right, and Reed, I suppose you can rebut yourself if you'd like, but
Bring back the
otherwise I'll bounce it over to Megan.
Love it. Well, I'll ask this of each of you, and I think, Reed, it's your turn to go first, but I think it's an interesting segue since Bill had just said that community is subjective. So I'd like both of you to please, if you would, define the community character of Snowmass Village and what you see as the greatest threat to it.
I think one of the hardest things is, again, I think Billy and I agree, the employee housing situation. Each year, more and more places that locals have lived go up for sale and no longer are rentals, and so people move further and further down valley. I've seen a lot less people living and working here in the last several years. I think we do a great job, but we could do better with the amount of people that we do have in employee housing. But I think more and more we're relying on down valley, and that's becoming a challenge as that has exploded as well. And a lot of people are not as interested in commuting as they may have been 5-10 years ago.
Bill, how would you define the community character of Snowmass Village, and what's the greatest threat?
Well, I think the character of the town is evolving. You know, it's I think as more people make Snowmass a full-time residence, the community changes. And I think some of the greatest threats are, not providing for those folks who are living here full time. I think, some of the council goals are to make Snowmass more walkable and bikeable. I'm a real proponent of, if you're going to travel around the village, let's walk, let's ride our bikes, let's ride public transportation. So I think we need to really accommodate that, and we need to prepare for it. And if we simply just bury our heads and say we're not going to have any development, we can't have any sidewalks, we can't have anything, which some people say affects the community character, I think it really diminishes the character of the town, because we really want to provide those opportunities to walk and bike and stay mobile within the village.
Sure. Reed, do you want a rebuttal?
Sure. I have one specific place where I agree that we want to make it safer and more inviting to walk and bike, but there's a spot across over by the enclave where it was voted to put sidewalks on both sides of the streets, and I don't think we need to pave everything. So that was sort of a thorn in my side from before when I was on the council.
Sure. All right. Well, this is one of my favorite Squirm Night traditions, and we've got the time for it. I'd love to give you all the opportunity to ask one question of each other through this campaign process, and thinking about why you're seeking a second term, why you're challenging. What would you ask of one another? And Bill, I'll let you start and ask something of Reed.
Okay. So, Reed, if one of the comprehensive planned areas is the Snowmass Mall, do you feel like you would have to recuse yourself in a development proposal for the mall?
I think the short answer could be yes, but I also feel like depending on what the effect of whatever the topic were, I think it would depend on that. When I was on the council before, I did recuse myself when it was inappropriate for me to vote on certain topics.
Reed, do you have a question for Bill?
Sure. Bill, what's one thing that you would have done differently if you could go back and change something that you've done while you've been on the council or as the mayor?
That's a good question. I think that I've been pretty intentional about everything that that we've worked through as a council, and while I've been the mayor. So I don't really have any regrets. I think that the process that we have in place works really well. I'm really big on building consensus. I think that the team that we have on the council is really good about really diving into the issues and figuring out the best solutions to certain challenges. So I don't really have any regrets.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you both. And now for your final question, you're going to have 60 seconds to respond since we've got a bit of extra time. We're going to borrow this one from the Snomats Village Community Survey, which I hope you also filled out before the deadline. What's one thing in Snomats Village that you wish you could keep the same forever? And I'd also like to know why. Excellent. Bill, you can go first on this one.
Well, I mean, I think the reason that we're all here is because of the mountain, and I would like to keep the mountain the same. I mean, I don't anticipate anybody coming in and plowing down the mountain, but Snowmass Village is really unique, and I think that the time that we all spend up on the mountain is super unique, and it's special, and I just love it. I mean, I ski Snowmass the majority of my time. I spend a lot of time over at Highlands as well, but Snowmass is special. It's big. You know, the majority of the skier visits that take place in our valley take place on Snowmass. So I think that if I could preserve one thing, it would be the mountain.
Thank you. And Reed, now it's your turn.
I like Billy's answer on that one. I think that one of the things I'd like to preserve is that community feeling of, I think we still have what a lot of towns have lost, and I think there's still a camaraderie between the people that work here, the people that vacation here, the people that have retired here, or now with a lot of the people that have moved in the last couple of years. And I think that the sort of the mix of everyone still happens here, and I hope that we can continue that, because I think it's really important to build community in that way where people understand each other's sort of their backgrounds and how it all fits together.
Excellent. Thank you both.
All right, so we're down to the 2-minute closing statements from each of you. And I believe, Reed, as the challenger, you get to go first.
Thanks. I hope that, thanks everyone again for tuning in and being here tonight. I hope that everyone has maybe learned a little bit more about me this evening. And I think my goal is to just bring a good common sense approach to the council. And I would love to ask your trust in me that I will ask good questions and especially listen to people. That's one of the things that I've been doing the last couple of weeks, is just listening to what issues are important to people and how we can keep coming up with new energy and new solutions to move our town forward and keep the community in this amazing place that we get to call home. I think I also offer a unique perspective in having moved here right after college, worked all sorts of resort jobs, and then had the opportunity to become a local business owner through that, worked next to people, with people. I still work the front lines sometime. So I have sort of that balance between like the resort and the community. And I think that that's important. I know a couple of people were excited to have another business person on the council. It's been a few years since we've had that. And I think the other thing I'm really excited that I was able to do is when I did sort of settle here full time after a couple years of moving every 6 months, I was able to get into the employee housing system, and that allowed me to get my feet on the ground. And shortly after that, I was able to actually buy a condo, and finally, after about 25 years, was able to buy a home here. So I've sort of run the gamut, and I kind of understand the situation from the beginning to like having a house. One last thing I'd like to add is I'm really grateful for people that have offered to donate to my campaign. I'm not accepting any donations. I'd rather you give that money to a local charity. Thanks very much.
All right, Bill.
Well, I'm excited to be part of the village and hopefully a second term as mayor. I feel like I've gained a lot of experience in the last 8 years, both sitting on the council and also sitting in the mayor's seat. And I think that that accumulated knowledge is beneficial to the village. Not only the work that I do as the mayor, but I also sit on the Board of Health. I'm on the RAFTA board. I'm on the Nordic Council. I sit on the EOTC, the Elected Officials Transportation Committee. I'm on the Jazz Aspen Snowmass board. I'm also on the Bob Beatty Foundation board. When I first graduated from college, when I returned to Aspen, I worked for Bob Beatty, and I started running the NASTAR ski racing program more than 30 years ago, and I still hold that position today. So I'm intensely loyal to the work that I do, the community that I serve, and I'm really looking forward to another term, and I hope that you'll vote for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for your time, your commitment to this community, and your thoughtfulness and your responses tonight as well. That just about wraps up our Snowmass Mayor Forum a bit ahead of schedule. So stay tuned as we'll have our candidates for the town council in about 20 minutes.
Thank you both
very
so
much.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Nice job. Thanks.
Good evening, and welcome to the second part of Snowmass Village Squirm Night, a 2022 election event brought to you by GrassRoots TV, Aspen Public Radio, the Aspen Daily News, and the Aspen Times. I'm Kaya Williams, a reporter with Aspen Public Radio, here along with Megan Tackett, the editor of the Aspen Daily News, and Don Rogers, the editor of the Aspen Times. Tonight's event is funded by a grant from the Aspen Thrift Shop, and we're grateful for their support.
Earlier tonight, we heard from the two candidates for mayor in Snowmass Village. Thank you both. Now we'll talk with four candidates vying for two available seats on the Snowmass Village Town Council. There's one incumbent, Tom Goode, and three newcomers, Britta, Gustafson, Susan Marolt, and Matt Dubé. As for voting, if you are a registered Pitkin County voter, your ballot will go out in the mail on October 17th, Monday. If you are in the military and stationed overseas, you may have already received your ballot in the mail. And of course, thank you for your service. You can return your ballot in the drop box outside the county's administration building on Main Street in Aspen. That drop box is already open for replacement ballots, which are available for people who are leaving town. Starting on Monday, you can also drop your ballot right here at the Snowmass Village Town Hall, as well as the Basalt Town Hall. You'll have until 7 p.m. on Election Day, that's Tuesday, November 8th, to drop off your ballot.
If you're voting by mail, the Pitkin County Clerk strongly advises you to mail in your ballot by October 31st. So it reaches them in time to be counted. In-person voting begins Monday, October 24th in the Pitkin County Administration Building's Roaring Fork Room, which will be open from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on weekdays until November 4th, and Saturday, November 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th, in case anyone forgets, there will be a trio of local polling centers open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. The polling centers will be located in the Aspen Jewish Community Center on Main Street in Aspen, in Snowmass Village Town Hall, and in the Basalt Regional Library. For more information on voting locations, go to pitkinvotes.com. You can also go there for a link to voter registration.
For the next hour, candidates questions about the relationship between the community and the town government. Since we have twice as many candidates this time around and just about the same amount of time, we've tweaked the timing a little bit. We'll begin with 90-second opening statements and end with 90-second closing statements. But for most questions, you'll still have 2 minutes to answer. Dom will give a 30-second warning and a 10-second warning. Each question will go out to two candidates at a time, and every candidate will get to face off with each of the others. Whoever answered first will get the chance for a 30-second rebuttal.
And to break things up, we will have short spot check questions. I'll be asking these short questions that shouldn't take longer than about 15 seconds. The last set, it took about, half a second? Take your time because we're on the clock, and the shorter you go, the shorter we end. Okay, think of it as a pop quiz. For now, we'll start with 90-second opening statements.
Britta, Matt, Susan, and Tom, thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. We're going to draw names out of a hat to determine who gets to speak first here. And when it comes time for closing statements, we're going to scramble the order up a little bit. So the two candidates who speak first will end up speaking in the middle. First and last will speak second and third at closing time. Don has the honorary hat drawing responsibilities.
You can't see anyway, so. Oh, do I look too?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
We gave him all of the hard stuff.
Okay,
Time.
Tom is number one.
All right,
boy.
Tom, you're up first.
So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you all for wanting to be a council person. I think it's very important for the community to have X amount of people involved in this community, and I want to thank you. So I assume you want to hear about my background, is what you want. I've lived here in the Valley for numerous years. I came in 1973. Not such a unique situation, but to ski like everybody else did, and wound up staying for X amount of years, and raised a family here, and I've lived here for a long time. And I've done numerous things besides being on council. I've chaired the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've been on the Board of Appeals for a lot of years, so I've always given back to the community. I've also coached high school football, Aspen High School football. I still officiate high school football. I run a plumbing and heating business in the Valley. I'm also a general contractor, so I have my roots set, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for that, Tom. All right, Don, time to draw again.
Okay. I know that I'm looking now. So number 2 is Matt.
Good evening, moderators and fellow candidates. I'm Matt Dubé. I'm a first-time ever political candidate. I'm running for council because I want to help protect our town's endearing qualities into the future. Everyone has their favorites, but my top qualities are seeing my friends at our grocery store, seeing the neighborhood kids playing together outside, and sunrises on our uncrowded trails. I believe a community is only as strong as its building blocks, which are neighborhoods, schools and institutions, and employers. I've lived here since 2015. I'm a co-owner with my wife of commercial real estate located outside the valley. I have a master's degree in landscape architecture, and this training shapes my everyday views in life. Landscape architecture has elements of urban planning, civil engineering, ecology, and cultural studies. I'm aware that natural processes, economics, and politics determine how our community looks, feels, and functions. Some of my volunteer work, I belong to Snowmass Rotary Club. I also volunteer at the Snowmass Chapel. My professional career was spent working for the redevelopment agency, the city of Gainesville, Florida, where I worked side by side with community leaders and private sector professionals to improve our city for its people. There are a lot of challenges we face. The skills I'll bring to town council are asking relevant questions, listening carefully, and wanting sensible solutions. I think my skills and perspectives would be unique and valuable to the town council.
I was going to give you this a little bit earlier, but it's how you edge into that, right? If I worked at NPR, I'd do it much better, I think. They train them for that. Okay, and the winner for this one is Susan.
Thank you. And really thank you for planning this conversation. I think it's really important for our town to engage in this whole process that we'll go through in the election, to just hear all the voices and talk about the important things. I have lived in Snowmass Village with my husband Roger for 30 years. We raised our 3 kids, Lucy, Max, and Jane, here, and have cultivated lifelong friendships and relationships. I'm excited for the opportunity to serve our village as a town council member. Our town has many amenities, and it's such a treasure, and I would be honored to be able to contribute to sustaining and enhancing all of those things. I recently completed 8 years on the Aspen School District Board of Education. I think that this experience prepared me well for other aspects of public service. I really enjoyed the process of listening to community members, representing their views, and I understand the governing process. So I think that was a good experience. I'm also a small business owner and a CPA. I've had CPA practice in Snowmass because I've worked at home for most of that time for 30 years. And I have a master's degree in accounting from the University of Texas, and I feel like that's really good experience for this position.
Beautiful. Exactly the same as him. Let me read it. Let's just make sure Britta's in here, right? And it's not like George back here or something. All right, Britta, you're in.
Thank you.
And you're on.
It's an honor to be up here with all of you tonight. I've been observing, listening to, writing about, and participating in town of Snowmass services and programs all of my life, and now I'm ready to serve. I care from a place of deep authenticity, and I want to be the best for the future of Snowmass Village. I want this to be the best for us right now at this pivotal juncture. I believe that when people arrive here, they can feel our story. And I'm a part of this story, born and raised here. Snowmass has been the backdrop and setting for my life. It's a significant part of the fabric of who I am. But this isn't about me, it's about our town. And I'm aware of the issues. I've stayed aware because I care. Because I want this to be about the hard conversations, because this place matters to all of us. I'm running to keep the voice of our community at the table at the council, preserve and sustain the character that we all love so much, and continue to celebrate and respect the reasons we are all here at these mountains. I know at times the challenges and experiences of our working families and community members, those struggles that I myself experience, can leave us questioning, is it worth it? My answer is yes. And I'm still enthusiastic, even after having written over 200 columns, often questioning our decision-making processes and bearing witness to the striking changes that have occurred over the decades. I feel solace in these mountains. I feel the vibrant energy that pulses throughout our community. And I'm raising 2 kids here who I hope can one day come to love this place as much as I do right now. My wish for Snowmass Village is that we remain aggressively aware of our priceless natural connections and that the scale and character of our human impact on this valley can be kept in check as we do it together.
Okay, you guys were all remarkably in the same late. I'm from Hawaii, so it was kind of 90 seconds-ish. So very good. All right, time for some questions. Each one will be for a pair of candidates, and every candidate will get to answer a question with each of the others. There's no particular order for who gets to answer first. We'll also sprinkle in some spot check questions. Speaking of which, Susan, when are regular town council meetings?
Monday evenings.
Give you credit for that if you'd like to elaborate on which Monday evening.
First and third, and then there's a work session, I think the second Monday.
There you go. Came in for extra credit with that work session. Thank you.
All right. Our first question goes to Susan and Tom. Snowmass is in an exceptionally strong position with finances as 2022 comes to a close. When revenues come in higher than projected, how do you think the money should be spent? Susan, you can go first on this one.
Thanks. You know, that's a great position to be in. And I think for a long time, many municipalities haven't found themselves in that position lately. So I think that the best thing for the town, for instance, to do in that situation is to sort of save it for a rainy day, build up your reserves so that then when things aren't quite so rosy, you've got some cushion there.
Sure. Spoken like every CPA I know.
So the bottom answer, I'm not a CPA by any means, and the budget issues right now on council have been a big issue for me because I'm still learning all the years I've been on council and everything else. And as we all know, the town of Snowmass, the municipality of Snowmass, is in good shape. And I agree with Susan. We have a good reserve, but we have a lot of capital projects on the books right now. And how far do we go? I think that depends on the community in regards to what we want to spend our money on and what we're spending our money on and what we get from contributions from whether it's feds or RAFTA or EOTC or anything like that. How much money does the town want to spend on certain projects is an issue for me at this point. And being in the mathematics issue is not my forte by any means. I am a former school teacher and now in a contractor situation. So I've always learned and always said certain things at budget meetings, and I'm still learning. So thank you.
Thank you. Susan, you have a 30-second rebuttal if you'd like it.
I'll just follow up just a little bit. When you ask a tax accountant a question, the answer is usually it depends, and I think that's I agree with Tom that it kind of depends on what you have in your budget, what you have earmarked as goals for the council. You look at all of that and you listen to the community and you decide what you do with extra funds. I would say that's probably a fair answer.
Okay, spot check. Tom's back in the spot. This one is, how many member votes make a supermajority in the Snowmass Council?
I think the question is, what makes a supermajority, you're saying?
Yeah, how many
Okay.
votes make a
Okay,
supermajority?
so 4 members are a supermajority for council.
Yeah.
And there are only certain resolutions or ordinances that require the supermajority.
Excellent. Tom also going for some extra credit there. Our next question has to do with public feedback, and it's for Britta and Matt. Britta, you'll go first on this one, and then we'll go over to you, Matt. Do you think that the current council pays enough attention to community members who submit public comments and to boards who submit recommendations?
You know, I've really enjoyed just the process of getting into the politics and having all the conversations around our community. I hear mixed messages on both of those. I think our community wants representation. Sometimes they don't seek it out. I think there's great opportunities to come to council meetings, and I think our local media is also a great resource, sometimes overlooked in this era of social media and misinformation. So I think that the conversations I hear would keep me feeling that there is opportunity, but our community doesn't always feel listened to. And I know we give out surveys, and sometimes those responses feel also unattended to. So, yeah, I feel like our community wants to be heard. That's the sentiment that I get. I don't know that they're seeking the correct opportunities, and perhaps there is something in our forward-looking way of communicating to the community, to give them those opportunities to hear through the PR of the, whether it's our marketing PR releases or information that comes straight from the council. So perhaps it's figuring out how to open those avenues up.
Thank you. And Matt, the same question over to you. Do you think that council's paying enough attention to public comments and board recommendations?
I think short answer, yes. I think council is listening. I think maybe the questioning of the community comments could go a little deeper. So when people are saying things such as, I think growth is moving too fast or too slow to just right, I think maybe that needs to be explored a little bit, because our society is so complex. I think there are a lot of nuances that are just asking to be uncovered. So I think probing a little more would help. I have talked with citizens about how they feel about the Snowmass government in general, and the quality and quantity of information, and I get mixed messages. I think some of the critical messages go to the difficulty of finding information. The town park project, and especially the rodeo, there were a number of planned iterations, many public discussions, but a few people I talked with felt like they couldn't get the correct information. So I think more clarity around information on important topics would be really helpful. And I'll just say, just sort of on top of that, there seems to be confusion about which entity is responsible for what in Snowmass Village. Is it Snowmass Village? Is it SKICO? Is it the county? Is it the state? There's a learning curve that I think needs to be kind of encouraged there. I think people have their own homework to do. We should encourage that. That would increase understanding and I think help conversations be more productive.
Excellent, thank you. And Britta, you have the chance to respond now with a rebuttal if you'd like.
No, but I guess I would like to echo that. I agree that it's that line of communication that I think that we're all kind of struggling with. Community members as well as council and town managers and staff. So.
Okay, double spot check. Easy ones. Susan, what is the new name of the hotel formerly known as the Westin?
Viewline.
20 points. Matt, what day does the print edition of the Snowmass Sun come out?
Wednesday.
Ooh, got it.
Nice.
Very good.
Matt, we'll keep you at the mic for this one, so you can answer first this time. Tom, this is going to come to you as well. Do you feel that the town council has autonomy from the interests and recommendations from town staff?
Well, it's there. Whether they take it or not, I think it's their choice. But I think, in general, there should be autonomy. There should be a probing of recommendations. There should be questions and answers. In my past life, I worked as a staff person inside city government. I was the guy standing in front of the dais making recommendations on a number of things. We as a staff at that time were used to getting questions, and sometimes they were a little squirmy, just after a fashion, but we owed it to the public to explain our positions, just as the members of the council owe it to the public to ask questions and to go in a different direction if it's not to their liking. Our council works to build consensus. You need 3 votes. You need to get people on your side to move forward. So I think that showing curiosity and really, there needs to be an intention to really be clear on what is being put in front of you from staff.
Great, thank you. Tom?
Megan, so when we meet, as an incumbent that is, when we meet with our agendas and our packets, I like to read through the packets. We get our packets on a Thursday, and I read through them. Staff always recommends certain things. And you got to remember, staff is employed full-time. We're not. We all have other jobs. We're all doing different things. And we are a government that a house rule situation, home rule situation, where we will look at our agendas, and we know, I personally, I know that staff will recommend certain things, and I will wait to the very last decision in my brain in regards to what the community would like to do, and then I will read staff's recommendations, and I will wait to the end so I don't make a current quick decision on that particular item on the agenda. So again, staff is employed full-time, and staff is part of the government here. Staff being whether it's tourism, marketing, or town council people, not town council people, town attorneys, town managers, and so on. So again, I appreciate what staff does, and I respect what staff does. But as a town council person and a councilman, I will wait and make my decision accordingly.
That's insightful. Thank you. Pat, did you want to take a 30-second rebuttal?
I'll just, not directly rebutting Tom, but I agree with what you said. I sit on the Planning Commission, and it works similar to council. Staff will bring recommendations on the matter before us. We routinely ask questions. We poke, we prod, we try to see if we can maybe shake up the recommendation, and if it still stands, we'll agree. And I do agree that we have a great staff. We're so fortunate to have them.
Thank you both.
All right, for the spot check, a staff question, Britta. The name of the town clerk?
Well, it was Rhonda Coxon, and now it's Megan.
You're halfway
Forgetting
there.
her last name.
Yeah, Megan
Starts with a
Boucher
T.
is our current town clerk, and I even included in here half point for Rhonda Coxon. So again, we are
Haven't
not
gotten
keeping
to
score.
meet her as much. So.
Excellent. Susan and Britta, this question goes out to both of you. You may have heard it in our last mayoral debate as well. I'd like for you to define the community character of Snowmass Village and also what you see as the greatest threat to it. Susan, you can go first.
Okay. the community character of Snowmass Village has to include the hiking, biking, and skiing that is literally right outside our doorsteps. And that's why we love it, and that's why I think our town is special. But in addition to that, we have almost every amenity you could think of. For such a small town, it's kind of unheard of. And so having all that in one place, and then having families that raise their kids here and local business owners who live and work here, just is the icing on the cake. And so to me, I think that piece, the locals living here and working here, and locally owned businesses are the pieces that we really have to work so hard to preserve. And I think when we talk about growth, it doesn't mean that we say no growth, but it means we direct that growth so that we preserve those things that we really value.
Thank you. Britta, it's your turn now.
So community character, I think at the heart of it, sort of a deep desire to participate, whether that's to get engaged with one another on community conversations, things we're all passionate about and care about, or to participate in that which we're here for, being outside, enjoying the mountains. And I think that one of the roots to that for us here is that we really love this lifestyle. And there's a deep sentiment amongst everyone that loving this lifestyle is what brings us together. It's the mountains, yes, first, and then falling in love with all the things that we care about as we grow as a community. Sort of that defines the character to me. I think one of the greatest threats, again, would be disconnecting. And we talk about connectivity and character, and I think we have a passion that when the character starts to feel like it's fading away, that passion also feels like it's siphoned from that experience. And so what it is that brings us together can just as easily be pulling us apart when we disagree on what it is that we want to see moving forward. Development has a lot to do with the character. So that would be a place that I would want to really consider heavily with every decision we make to alter the landscape here.
Thank you. Susan, you have a 30-second chance to respond if you'd like.
Just as far as a threat to our community, I think there's many mountain resort towns that are going through the same process of worrying about, what will take away the character of our community. And so I think looking at other towns and sort of watching for things that we want to make sure we keep control of here is really important. And so I think just preserving those pieces of our village that we find really special and where we can connect as locals is really important for us to protect.
Thank you.
All right, spot check, Matt. What property management company oversees the Snowmass Mall?
I believe it's the Romero Group.
Excellent. All these people, full credit.
A students here. Susan and Matt, this one's for both of you. With rising project costs, and Tom noted the capital projects that are on the docket, with rising project costs for capital improvements, how much more expensive can a project get before you think the town should put a pin in it? Matt, sorry, I'm looking at you without telling you that you're up first.
I was reading your body language there. Kind of, how much more expensive would have to get before we end it? Oh, that's I don't discount gut reactions. I mean, that's not objective, but these times are so unusual with inflation and materials, labor force costs getting so high. It's hard to pin down. What seems exorbitant could be market. But really, I think, it probably comes down to, how we feel about the value that's returned. So a project at whatever price may be market value, but if we feel like we're just not getting the value, it's not helping the people of the town in a, let's say, commensurate way, parallel way, then maybe it should be stopped. Go back to the drawing board or wait. But some projects can't wait. Some projects have a high necessity. Let's say housing, for instance. Waiting for prices to come down may not be a good idea, but going back to the drawing board and finding creative ways through design and materials to have the project go forward, even in a high-cost environment, maybe that's something that we could do.
Great, thank you. Susan, your insights?
Well, I would say first, that's one of the reasons that we have budgets, is that you have a set amount of dollars that you've allocated to spend for a certain project. And if it starts to go over that amount, then you have to decide where are you going to reallocate other funds from. And so that's when you can see what is the value. Do we value this more than something else where we might have to take the money from? And so I feel like in all of the goals that council sets and all of the capital projects that the council would embark on, I think it's really important to sort of try to focus your energy on a select few so that you're really prioritizing the ones that are most important and can give it the urgency and the funding and the effort that it deserves.
Sure. Matt, do you want a 30-second response?
I'll just say quickly that no matter where the money comes from, it is all taxpayer money. And for some projects, if we're getting a federal or a state transfer, and we can't just say, well, we're only putting in so much at Snowmass Village. It's all taxpayer dollars. We should all be concerned about it all.
Thank you both.
Okay, spot check. This one is for Tom. What is the name of the Master Homeowners Association for 13 different Snowmass subdivisions?
13 different subdivisions. So that would be the HOA would be Snowmass HOA?
It would be. Yes, it
That was a
would.
good guess.
Excellent. Britta and Tom, this next question is for both of you. Britta, just big enough is a fundamental phrase in your campaign website and your platform. Tom, you said in an interview last week that you don't agree with the phrase just big enough. So, Britta, actually, apologies, Tom, you can go first on this one. Do you think that just big enough is a phrase that we could get back to in the future?
No, not at all. I think that phrase is overdone, and the village has developed into a different point of view, as far as you might say, because just big enough was a term used years ago before Base Village was developed. It was in between development and so on. And what is just big enough? Does that mean just big enough above the Woodbridge, or does that mean the whole town, the municipality? I'm not a fan of just big enough, not by any means. I mean, we could look across the street at what's going on in our life in this town, and it's not just big enough anymore. We've gone from rural to urban, and that's where we're at right now. And regardless of what anybody wants to do with development and slow it down, you could slow it down, but we don't own the land. Developers develop, and that's what they do.
Excellent. Now, Britta, for you, why do you think it is that just big enough is still a goal for Snowmass Village?
I think our emphasis on just big enough really matters. And I think it needs to be more than words, but I still believe in it. I definitely believe that when you drive up the Brush Creek Road and you are surrounded by the natural beauty of the golf course and the small homes tucked away into the valleys, and you pass the Little Red Schoolhouse and the Anderson Ranch, and coming up Owl Creek Road, you still feel completely immersed in the rural experience. I think the original vision was to have these nodes of development. And yes, they've gotten big, but they've always been part of the plan. I think it's more than just an aspiration. I think it's a belief system in this community. It started with as little as possible, and it's grown into just enough. And now, there's question to me about adding big into the just big enough and what that has made our community become from the time that we added that phrase in, of the just big enough. But I still think that it's something we aspire to, and I think it's really relevant, and it makes this place unique and special, and I don't think we've lost it at all.
Tom, you have the chance to respond if you'd like.
I would, and I agree with Britta. I mean, back in the early 70s when you drove up Brush Creek Road, and at night especially, you could still see the same lights are on when you drive up. You could see the rural area. But when you get up into the village itself, and speaking of all the different nodes and so on, that's the way the village is. We have the town center, we have the post office in the center itself, we have the opening, the town park, you might call it, we have the mall. We're going to have these nodes no matter what happens in our life. It's going to happen. And I do agree with Britta, just big enough, but again, I still disagree with Britta in regards to just big enough only applies from Woodbridge, the wooden bridge by the Woodbridge condos above. So that development, I mean, the town itself, the rural area itself, the village, the homes, that stays the same. There's not much land left to develop as far as that goes. We're about out at that point.
Awesome. Thank you both for that.
Spot check. Speaking of building, I think. Britta, what's happening in phase 1 of the town park project?
So I believe at this time the flex fields and the rotation of the rodeo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's pretty close to it. The main parts are the rodeo. They're doing a little bit of work on the pond to fit the rodeo.
And the maintenance building.
And some parking work there. Just for those listening or watching as well, it's not starting until 2023 at this point, which is why you don't see
total
anything
panic. Love it. Our last question goes out to each of you, and we're borrowing it straight from the Snowmass Community Survey. It's not a gotcha, just quick 30 seconds. What's one thing in Snowmass Village that you want to keep the same forever? And I'd love to know a quick reason why. We'll just start with Matt and go down the line.
The bikeability of town, the mountain bike trails on the town trails, the downhill system on the hill, and the stepchild is road cycling. I love road cycling. I've never lived in a place that is so hospitable to road cycling. In fact, the whole valley, but especially in Snowmass Village. I spent a lot of time riding these roads into the cyclists out there. Highline Road is going to be widened a little bit to create more space. I am just so happy about that. The cycling all around, it brings people together. It's wonderful.
Great, thank you. Britta, what do you want to keep the same about Snowmass forever?
The character. And I can define that, again, as I mentioned and Tom did as well, that drive-in, that experience of awe-striking rural appeal, that we're something unique, that we have not urbanized or suburbanized. I would love to see us do as much as we can to preserve the character that is what brings people here and gives us a feeling that's unique, I think, and growing in its uniqueness around the country and in a lot of places around the world.
Thank you. Susan?
I think I would have to say the relationships that are formed here. I feel like, particularly when I talk to my kids and friends of my kids that have grown up here, they've formed really, really strong bonds with the people that they grew up with in this small town. And even as they would go to Aspen to school or, off into the world, they've kept those really special relationships. And I feel like as adults, we have those here too. And I think it's a really important piece of why we all really love being here.
Nice. What are you keeping forever?
Well, that's tough because everybody's mentioned everything I had. I agree with everybody in regards to, the cycling from Matt and Britta's comment and Susan especially. This is just a wonderful community, and I love being here, living here. Pedestrian safety has always been my issue. Talking about Highline Road with Matt cycling. I'm also a road bike enthusiastic person, and I've actually gone from riding in Snowmass to different places because of the safety issues. And I can't wait to get some of those safety issues back in place. And the community itself, just as Susan said, I mean, this is just a tight-knit community. I mean, regardless of how we grow, and we grow slowly as far as full-time residents. When you look at the communities next to us, in regards to what's going on, and I'm not going to mention their name by any means, but they have grown, and I'll just leave it at that. They've grown to the point where I don't recognize them anymore.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, and thank you for your thoughtful answers. And it was a great discussion, I thought. Especially someone who's new to your town. I've been here maybe 4 times, and then just listening to you guys speak with the care and the character, and those things are great to hear. It makes me very jealous. But we have 90-second closing statements, not from me. So just in time, we'll go in an order of Susan, Tom, Britta, Matt, and we'll start with Susan.
Okay. Well, I just appreciate you having us here tonight. And as I said before, it's really valuable to the community. And so I really applaud the process, even though Squirm night sounds rather painful. I'm really excited for an opportunity to serve on town council. I enjoy meeting and listening to members of the community. I think it's really the most important part of the job. I think that is what the town council does, is they interpret the views, wants, needs, and passions of our community into, how that is implemented by the staff. And so I think that's important, and it's something that I think I would really enjoy doing. My financial background is, I think, a plus. I feel like I have experience with budgets and just within accounting in general. And I read the tax code occasionally, so I have some interpreting statutes experience, which is important as well. I just have been in this town for a long time. I love and cherish all of the community that we have, and I want to work to keep that in place for as long as possible.
I just want to comment, 1 minute, 29 seconds, and 76. Whatchamacallit, it's like that is the closest I've seen. That's got to be worth some points, right? Okay. All right, so Tom.
Well, thank you again for everybody who has applied to run for council. I think it's outstanding task. Campaigning is a very humbling experience. Believe me, I've campaigned a number of times between running for mayor or council itself. It is a humbling experience, and again, I want to thank everybody. And this town is so special to me. I feel that my job is not done yet. This is why I decided to run again. I've had the opportunity to take over our present mayor's position for 2 years. And I also ran again and took over another gentleman who left the council and was elected, and then elected again myself. So being on the Planning and Zoning Board for so many years, being on the Board of Appeals, again, I just feel like this is my community, and I want to thank everybody for hosting us. And Susan mentioned Squirm Night, and I want to thank everybody for making us feel comfortable, because you've always done this in the past. Thank you again.
It's a name we inherited.
I just have to say, last week was a little squirmier, us included. So thank you. Okay. All right. Well, Britta, you're up.
Thank you. So if you've read any of my work, from the stories preserved in the Story of Snowmass, our history book that I helped to co-create, or to the years of columns I've penned, then you probably have some idea of where I stand on many issues. But in my own words from past columns, I'd like to add, it's a constant balance between growth and maintaining natural and genuine character, but it's a worthy cause, and we have to strive to get it right. When I plead for a pause in action, it's based on witnessing projects that were pushed through without the full support of the very community who will shoulder the ramifications for a lifetime. And even as we look to the future with a desire to mature and evolve in concert with our economic and cultural needs, we must consider the sprawling movements that continue. Once a building goes up or a sidewalk is laid down, it's not going away. We must remind ourselves that every time we add something, we take something else away. Let's tread lightly, because we don't want to pave paradise. Like the mistakes of yesterday, the mistakes of tomorrow will belong to us. Character is an intangible thing, but we know it when we see it, when we feel it, and as long as it exists here in Snowmass, it's our job to preserve the magic, the vision, and the dream. And well done is better than well said, and I didn't write that. That's Ben Franklin. But please let me lead and put my own words into action. And again, we always need to support and advocate for local media. Shameless plug. Thank you.
All right. Matt?
Thank you. Snowmass Village is my home. I feel it's really important that we know our essence. We have to know who we are. We can't drift. We can't just hope for things to turn out well. We have to be active. We have to make deliberate choices, and it all comes back to knowing our essence. Essence is a concept related to character. It's related to community. We have to strengthen our neighborhoods, our schools, institutions, and employers to make a whole, complete community. I've been given much in life: a supportive family and education, great friends, an opportunity to live in one of the finest mountain towns in the nation, an opportunity to serve on our planning commission and influence the character and the complexion of our community. It's my sincere wish to give back by helping Snowmass Village navigate the future. I am truly honored to be here with everyone up here tonight. Each one has contributed meaningfully to this community, and it's an honor to be in their presence. I will present my best case to the people of Snowmass Village, and I respectfully seek your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you to all of you for your time tonight. That wraps up our Snowmass Village Squirm Night. Hope it hasn't been too painful for you. We really appreciate your commitment to the community, and we know running for elected office is no easy task. Tom mentioned that it is quite humbling to campaign, so we really appreciate you coming out tonight. Special thanks as well to the Aspen Thrift Shop for funding GrassRoots broadcast tonight. Thank you to GrassRoots for broadcasting it, and to my colleagues at the Times and the Daily News for helping out tonight. Thank you all. and have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.